Station 1. Describe a time when you had to break bad news to a patient or family member.
Very recently, I attended an event where I had to borrow my older sister's favourite dress. And unfortunately, when I got back from the event, I put it in the wrong laundry basket, which meant that when it came out, it was very discoloured. So I had to break bad news to my sister and let her know that I'd accidentally ruined her favourite dress. And my overall approach to this conversation was one where I was very honest, I listened very carefully to my sister, and I came up with an overall resolution where we were both happy. How I started this conversation was that I made sure that she wasn't very busy. I found her in a time where she was alone in her room, and it was just me and her having this conversation. And first of all, I reminded her that I had borrowed her dress the previous weekend, and then I essentially gave a warning shot where I told her that I'd accidentally did something wrong with the dress. And then I was very honest and very open and told her straight up that I'd ruined her dress by putting it in the wrong washing load, and now it's not white anymore, it's a very discoloured grey. And understandably, she was very upset with this news. She was very angry and she was saying a lot of things. I made sure to first of all listen to her, try and support her the best way I could, and kept on reminding her that I'm very sorry and that it was an accident. Additionally, I made sure to give some sort of resolution to the situation. I told her that I was more than happy to pay for another dress, a very similar dress from the same store next week, and pay it with my own allowance. And overall, she understood that it was an accident and she did agree to me helping out with purchasing the next dress. On the whole, I think this conversation went really well. I had a very compassionate approach to the situation, I was very apologetic, and ultimately I was able to come to a resolution.
Station 2. During a patient consultation, you notice subtle signs of domestic abuse. How would you approach this sensitive issue?
Domestic abuse is harm caused by someone else, someone often close to a person. And after having spoken to a lot of doctors and a lot of students, this can present in different ways in a ward, for example. The patient can come in with bruising, very obvious bruising on their face, their neck, their arms. They can have difficulties going to the toilet. Their communication can be very reclusive or very hesitant. So this is a very sensitive issue, and there's multiple ways that I'd approach this situation. The main ones being I'd make sure I'm in a private setting with the patient, and I offer them with a lot of support and a lot of resources to better their situation. If I did think that a patient was in a situation where they were being abused, I'd make sure I'd approach them in a very private manner, making sure that we're in a separate room or the curtains are drawn close in the ward. And I'd ask them very compassionately, using very open questions without making assumptions. And I'd be very patient with their replies, making sure that they take as much time as possible to answer these questions. And for example, say they did disclose to me that they were being abused at home, for example, then I'd provide them with the right resources, support them to the best of my ability, and reassure them that there is help available, and us as the medical team will try our very best to help their situation. That being said, the situation is very complex and is very sensitive, so it definitely requires a multidisciplinary approach to this. So I'd make sure to contact my seniors, the rest of my colleagues, whether it be the nurses, the physiotherapists, and make sure we all come to a very conclusive and holistic approach into managing this patient's domestic abuse.
Station 3. A patient constantly speaks negatively about you with other patients on the wards during your placement. How would you address this?
Negative comments can really affect morale and relationships. And I know that if I was a medical student or a doctor in the situation and I heard a patient or a group of patients talk negatively about me, it would really upset me. However, there are a lot of ways to address the situation, and they involve talking to the patient privately, remaining calm, reflecting on feedback, and discussing this with my supervisors when appropriate. If I did hear a patient say this to me, I'd first of all talk to them privately, whether that be in a separate room or with the curtains drawn on a ward, and make sure to fully elicit why they feel upset, what I've done wrong, and really understand their side of the story. I'd also make sure to remain very calm, not let my emotions get in the way, since at the end of the day, it's the patient's well-being that's my priority, and I'd want to do everything that's in their best interests. Additionally, if they were upset due to a misunderstanding on my part, I'd make sure to really reflect on that and prevent that from happening in the future. However, if this were to continue, the negative comments didn't subside, or we weren't able to reach to some sort of resolution, I'd definitely tell my supervisors, whether that be my consultants or the registrar on the ward, and follow the respective local guidelines on how to address the situation. Overall, I do think that these kind of situations are quite prevalent in the NHS. They do come up. However, being able to address them in a professional manner really improves clinical practice.
Station 4. You are given a group project at school to evaluate the benefits and drawbacks of separating students in the year group into sets. Would you volunteer to lead the group?
This is a very interesting project, and I do know that when you're a medical student or when you're a doctor, you do have to work a lot in different groups with different colleagues and different people from all sorts of backgrounds. So yes, I definitely lead this group, as it's an opportunity for me to work on my leadership skills, my organisation skills, and to work with different individuals. There are a lot of things that I would do as a leader in this group. I'd delegate effectively, I'd evaluate all outcomes, and I'd stay neutral on any outcomes that we do come up with. However, I do know that in leadership roles like this, there are a lot of challenges, but I think I'm very well equipped to deal with these as well. The first thing I do in this group project is I make sure to delegate all the tasks very fairly amongst all of my peers by making sure everyone has the right amount of workload and they all thoroughly understand the tasks that they've been given. I'd also want to make sure to stay neutral throughout the debate and make sure I consider all the pros and cons and stay neutral about them. And finally, I'd evaluate the outcome of our project in a very objective manner, making sure I've heard all sides and all opinions from all of my peers. However, I do know from my previous experience that leading a group like this does have some challenges. You can often be faced with disagreements where people might not agree with the workload that they've been given, or they might not actually agree with the overall outcome of the project. And how I'd solve these is I'd make sure to communicate very effectively with my peers by really making sure that they understand what's going on, or if they do have any sort of issues, whether it be personal issues as to why they can't complete certain tasks, I'd make sure to tailor tasks to them and to their capabilities as well. And in terms of solving problems to do with the overall outcome of the project, I'd make sure to come to some neutral compromise regarding what we want to achieve from the project and what we want to say. So overall, I think this opportunity would be excellent for me to develop my collaboration skills, my leadership skills, and also work on my conflict resolution skills. I'm very confident in my abilities to lead this group very effectively from my previous experience at Sixth Form.
Station 5. In what ways have you taken on a teaching role in your academic career?
Teaching shares a lot of knowledge and it helps others understand. And after having spoken to a lot of medical students and a lot of doctors, I do know that being able to teach is a lifelong skill that you need as a medical student and throughout your career. So I do know that although doctors and students are learning from others throughout their entire careers, from their seniors, from their lecturers, from their seminar leaders, they're always teaching their juniors at the same time, or in fact teaching their peers. So I think this is a very important skill, and I do believe that I've definitely honed in on it during my academia so far. Throughout my A-levels, I was able to be a peer tutor, present presentations for revision, and finally organise study groups as well. As a peer tutor, I was able to informally, during classrooms, help my friends, help my peers with topics that they were struggling on, and they definitely found my help to be very useful and they did learn a lot. Additionally, closer to exam time, I was able to, with the supervision of my teachers, create revision PowerPoints to be used during classrooms, where I was able to teach hard topics to my peers and my friends once again. And finally, whether it was online or in person, I also organised study group sessions where me and my friends, we could share our knowledge and practice questions with each other. Teaching definitely strengthens communication and aids learning. I definitely do think by being able to teach others particular topics, it actually strengthens your own knowledge. So by teaching others, it actually in fact helps your own revision alongside that too. I do think it's a very important skill that's needed throughout my career and as a medical student as well. And I'm definitely very keen on honing this as I progress throughout my journey as a clinician or as a medical student.
Station 6. In what ways would your friends agree that you are suitable for a medical career?
A medical career requires a lot of very important skills like empathy, being patient, being a great listener. And I do think that across my friendships that I've developed throughout my years, my friends would say that I've developed a lot of these skills, in fact, a lot more. The main ones I think they would mention are that I'm a great listener, I'm an excellent problem solver, I'm very dependable, and finally I have a very keen interest in healthcare. I think my friends would say that I'm a very good listener, since they often do confide in me with the problems that they may have, the issues that they may have in their lives. And I think this is a very important skill that's needed in this particular career, since this skill is needed to develop a good rapport with the patient, to build trust with them, but also to elicit the kind of medical problems they have so you can come up with a solution. Additionally, they would also say that I am very dependable. I'm always there when my friends need them when they're going through difficult times. And additionally, they would also say that with my other commitments, I'm an excellent team player and I'm a very reliable person in general. And again, this is very important in this career, since a lot of different professionals, the patients, they all rely on you being a good team player, and that comes down to being a very dependable person. Additionally, they would also say that I'm a great problem solver. I really enjoy tackling challenging problems during classroom when I'm with them. And again, this is very important in this career, since problem solving is the crux of being able to solve these very important clinical problems when it comes to diagnosing a patient, for example. And finally, they would definitely say that I have a very keen interest in healthcare. I love the human aspect of biology, particularly learning about human anatomy, and they do see that during our lessons. And with EPQ that I've been working on to do with diabetes, they would definitely argue that I have a very keen interest in healthcare. And again, this is vital for this career, where you actually have to be passionate about the healthcare field and the latest developments that are up and coming. Overall, I think my friends would describe me as a very empathetic person and someone who's very keen on this particular field.
Station 7. Why do you think essay writing skills are essential in medicine?
Essay writing skills are very important in medicine, and I do think I've definitely worked on them during my A-levels by taking a very essay-heavy subject like English literature. And the reasons why I think essay writing are very important, since it helps build clarity, it's great for research, it improves critical thinking skills, and finally it's a very important tool for reflection. In terms of clarity, essay writing helps you break down very complex ideas into comprehensible pieces of text, and this is very important as a clinician, since you need to be able to discuss important concepts with your colleagues, but also with your patients as well. Additionally, essay writing is very important in research, particularly for evidence-based research, where you're having to read very lengthy pieces of text to come up with guidelines in order to improve your patient's treatment plan, for example. So being able to write essays, it helps you comprehend essays to do with treatments or to do with medications, for example. Additionally, it also aids in your critical thinking skills, since it's an element of problem solving. Being able to break down a complex idea and turn it into a comprehensible essay, it improves your ability to solve a problem, which we know is a very important skill needed for medicine, as problem solving is the crux of what makes a good clinician when they're coming up with their diagnoses. And finally, after having spoken to a lot of medical students and a lot of doctors, I do know that reflection is very important. And a key element of reflection is being able to write essays across your medical career and as a doctor as well. So being able to hone in on this skill early on, it helps you develop these skills and perfect your essay writing skills. So overall, I do think that essay writing skills is very important, and I've definitely been working on it throughout my A-levels, and I'm very keen to improve on this as I enter my medical education.
Station 8. Outline how studying a medical degree would fit in with a day in your life.
Medicine definitely is a very rigorous degree. It involves a lot of learning and a lot of time to complete this. And after having spoken to a lot of medical students, they have told me that it's very important to have a structure to your daily routine, and the day-to-day life of a medical student does vary whether you're in your clinical years or your pre-clinical years. So I'll be talking about both and discussing how my day-to-day life would look like if I was in either of those years. In my pre-clinical years, I know that my morning would involve a lot of lectures where I'm learning a lot of different things about physiology, about anatomy, and this would be followed by more small group tutorial-based learning in the afternoon, where we're applying what we've learned to various cases and working as a team to solve them. In my clinical years, however, my morning and afternoon would essentially be a 9 to 4 or 9 to 5, where I'll be based in a hospital trust, and my learning would be on the wards with my seniors like consultants, other healthcare professionals like physiotherapists and nurses, and I'll be applying what I've learned from my pre-clinical years into more of a physical setting. However, my afternoon and evening would look similar on the whole for both pre-clin and clinical years. So my afternoon would involve more independent learning, where I'm honing what I've learned, where I'm reflecting on what I've learned during my day, filling in any gaps within my knowledge. And my evening would involve a lot of self-care, winding down, attending any societies or any clubs that I'm part of, and making sure I have a balance of both learning and having fun as well. Overall, studying medicine has this very interesting blend of learning a lot of different things all the time, but also this element of self-care and keeping up with your hobbies too. And it's very important to be aware that you won't be able to do everything on your to-do list for a day. One of my main worries is that I love playing tennis and I might not have time to do it when going to medical school. However, after having spoken to some medical students, they have told me that you can join specific medical society sports groups whose timetable is fit around the medical school schedule. So I think things like this are an excellent way to maintain self-care, fun and hobbies alongside the very rigorous learning that you do throughout this career.
Station 9. Explain 3 ways you can maintain patient dignity.
Dignity means respecting a patient's values and making them feel safe. And there are lots of ways that you can do this, the main ones being ensuring their privacy, communicating with them effectively, and listening to them very carefully as well. Ensuring privacy means a lot of things. So on the wards, it may mean drawing the curtains on all of the beds, which was something that I saw quite a lot during my work experience during ward rounds. Or it may also mean making sure that the doors are closed in a consultation room, or that you're in a separate room when speaking to the patient. Additionally, privacy can also mean having a chaperone present with the healthcare professional doing the consultation. This not only safeguards the patient as well, it also protects the doctor too. Additionally, ensuring dignity also means communicating effectively with the patient and being very empathetic. And this may mean talking to the patient with their preferred name or with their preferred pronouns. This is particularly important for groups such as the LGBTQ+ community, who've been marginalised and degraded for these very reasons for a very, very long time. And finally, respecting patient dignity also means listening very carefully to the patient. This means being very patient with them, having very open body language, using very open questions when listening to them, and making sure they have time to answer questions as well. So overall, respecting patient dignity is very important since it reassures the patient, it helps them feel valued and helps them feel respected. All of these build trust with the patient, which ensures for a very smoother, more comprehensive consultation or conversation, ultimately leading to better patient outcomes.
Station 10. During your final A-level exam, you notice your friend crying across the room. How would you approach them after the exam?
Exams are usually a big stress for a lot of students, for a lot of individuals, and it's very important that we do support people when we see them in need. So there are a lot of things that I would do in the situation if I were to see my friend crying during the exam, after the exam. So first of all, what I do after the exam is I'd sit down with them and I'd actively listen to what they have to say. They may not have been crying due to the exam stress, there may have been other personal problems that built up during the exam. So again, I'd approach them very openly, I'd sit down with them, I'd let them say what they want to say to me, and I'd be very patient with them. Additionally, I'd be very compassionate and very empathetic with them. I'd offer any emotional support that they would want. So this may involve whether they just need a hug, whether they just want to have a very lengthy conversation over coffee about it. So I'd be very compassionate to them as well. And additionally, I'd also respect their privacy. It may be the case that when I do approach them, they may not actually want to disclose why they were upset. So I'd give them time. And if they did disclose to me why they were upset or what was going on, then I'd keep that very confidential, making sure I respect what they want me to do with that information. And finally, I'd offer them help, I'd offer them support, whether that be academic support, whether that be emotional support. Academic support may mean that we have more study sessions together, or I mentor them on things that they're struggling with. And emotional support can be things like just doing fun things together, having more chats about what's going wrong, what's happening in their life, or even if they want more hugs or things like that. So overall, supporting our friends during this difficult time strengthens relationships, and it also develops very important skills which are needed across medicine and across the medical career as well.